I'd like to call this meeting of the Henley Homes and Royal Building Committee meeting to order at 6:01 on April 23rd, 2025. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting from March 26th. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Sarah moves, Jameson seconds. All in favor? Tom, I assume you're voting yes. Aye. Doesn't look like we have any members of the public here to comment. We have Tom's assistant, so that's good with us. Chair's report. Really, the one thing I wanted to tee up for the chair's report was the email I sent around Monday, I guess, yesterday, Monday. I apologize for the lateness of that email, but that there's a school tour tomorrow. It's being done for the town leadership and other invited guests of the school district, starting at Henley at 9. So anybody on the building committee who wants to attend that, feel free. I believe it's going to be, bear with me one second. It is going to be Henley from 9 to 9:30, Holmes from 9:45 to 10:15, and Royal from 10:30 to 11, starting at the Holmes construction trailer. So anybody on the committee who wants to attend that, please feel free.
Chris, I think, sorry to interrupt. I think they're starting at the Henley trailer.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, Henley trailer. I misspoke. That's right. My bad. Sorry about that. So Henley trailer at 9 for those members of the committee who want to join the tour. I guess Dave Cravenzola and I were starting a conversation, and I'm glad Dr. Adley's been able to join. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'm sorry that Josh Kaufman couldn't join. He's celebrating his 40th birthday today, but we're gonna, I think, Sarah, let's make sure we add Josh to the invite list going forward for these meetings. He's the new town finance director taking over for Jen Charneski, who has stepped up to be the town administrator to replace Kate Bush. But I wanted to just get some clarity on the process, and maybe we just it needs to be a side conversation with Josh, but the process for submissions to the state for reimbursement of our regular construction costs. I understood that those were going to be done, quarterly or not monthly, not with every pay app, but that they were going to be done less frequently than that. But I just wanted to understand who was taking the lead on preparing those submissions and who needed to approve them before they were sent in. And let me just look at my notes for a second. And I don't know, Dr. Adley, maybe you can recall how it went with Ox Ridge. Maybe we just need to defer this to a separate conversation. But I know you had signed a bunch of the change orders that were submitted to the state. But I was focusing more on the regular construction cost submissions.
I can work with Dave on that. They generally came through, they thought ONG first of all, but probably something just to take offline, and we'll just, it's been working there, so we can work with ONG here in terms of with the flow of it.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, Chris, this is Dave. My suggestion is, I know we're going to be getting on the phone, I think, with Josh pretty soon to go through some of that budget stuff. And I think it's important, just hopefully maybe we can get a little bit of Josh's time with Jen, because my understanding was that Jen led that process on Ox Ridge. The actual payment side, receiving reimbursement from the state of Connecticut for the reimbursable portion, was not something that the ONGAP was involved with at Ox Ridge. It happened, but we'll certainly be part of that discussion to make sure that you are getting those progress payments submitted and are receiving them. I believe the state's requirement is you're not allowed to submit for them any more frequent than every 2 months. They don't let you submit every month, so I think it's 2 months at a time is the soonest that you can requisition monies from the state.
Right. Okay. Okay.
The other side of that what Alan mentioned was the state change order process, which we do, ONGAP, we do control that process. We gather the documents that Scott and Matt team put together. We, circulate it for the various signatures that happen. And then Scott, you could probably speak more detailed about this, but I believe we have a couple of change orders for each project submitted, and I think we've received comments from the state for at least one or so of them, and that the review that the state did, they, for the most part, with the exception of maybe $1,000 here or there, agreed to the amount that we submitted as eligible for reimbursement.
Yep, that's correct. We've gotten one back for each school. And like you said, the comments that were made were all legitimate, ineligible items that were on there. So, and it really didn't amount to much. There was some, some taxes probably for some rental equipment and such.
Okay.
And Scott, how many state change orders do we have submitted to date? 2?
2. Well, the second one is getting ready to go out.
So I think the last thing I'll say on that is that we are in a very good spot with the state, excuse me, because they're reviewing the changes as we're submitting them. And this is not the norm for them. There's sometimes that you can go a year plus without hearing back from the state. So the state is engaged and they're reviewing these things as we're submitting them. So that's a positive.
Great. Okay. Okay.
In fact, Chris, do you have the second one in your court? I haven't looked to see whose court that's in because I had sent that second state change order to Travis for a signature, I believe.
I had not seen the second state change order. I've only seen the second set of G701 change orders from you.
Oh, so you have all right.
We're going to vote on those this evening, but they should be approved.
Then that'll become the second state change order. I thought we had the second one submitted. I thought I got it. That's
No, you just submitted the change order to us, which we'll approve, and then that'll be part of the next pay app, and then presumably rolled into the next state submission for change orders.
okay.
Okay. Scott, would you, for the folks on the Zoom, give us an update on how things are going construction wise? I know everyone's back now from spring break, and you guys were able to hopefully get a fair amount done over that stretch.
Yeah, we were. I also have teed up some stuff. I know Paul had asked to go through some of the logistics and phasing plans. I didn't know if you guys still wanted to run through those tonight.
If you got people on the phone and they're willing to do that, that's okay with me.
Okay, because
Paula and Natasha, did you want to do that?
Well, I mean, I think they're clear on it. I just was going to run through. I think Paul wanted to run through.
Oh, Paul Harding. I'm sorry. I thought you said Paula. Okay.
No, Paula and their teams are good on that. I think it's Paul Harding wanted to do it. I didn't know if you guys wanted to run through it or
Why don't we do it? Yeah, let's do it possibly at OAC if Paul joins.
Okay.
On Friday. I'd rather have him here so he can ask the questions that were important to him.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. So, all right, well, listen, I'll start with homeschool. Again, everything is trending on our schedule. There's been no major changes or interruptions in the work, so everything is running on schedule there. As you'll see tomorrow, there's the finishes going into the classroom edition. I think they're painting inside of the music edition. We're getting ready for ceilings in there. We got a decent amount of work done on the April break. The biggest thing that we got done was the transfer of the power. So our new transformers are up and running, and we're running off of all the new switchgear. The old stuff is, the old transformers de-energized. So that was a big hurdle for us, and that all went really well on all 3 schools. So that was the biggest thing at Homes to get done. And we also cut through the second floor corridor. So now we have access to the second floor of the school addition through the school building now. As you guys will see tomorrow, whoever's going to be on that meeting.
Great, great.
So all things are running fairly well there. And then at the Royal School, more of the same. There's actually quite a bit of existing building work that took place over the April break. We demoed the fan room to get the existing exhaust fans removed so we can start getting the ductwork completed in there, because there's ductwork that runs through there to run the new additions, along with some air handling units that are in that crawl space, as well as the 40s school wing roof was removed. The AVB was installed to make the building watertight. And then we installed the steel dunnage on the roof for all the new RTUs and heat pumps to be installed, which was also a big amount of work to get done over there. And along with that, we stripped the 90s wing roof and re-roofed the 90s wing.
Oh, wow.
And tomorrow they're actually going to be stripping the roof over the gymnasium, and we're going to start getting that re-roof work done in that dunnage area completed as well. So the existing building roofing is going really well over there. And then again, we also did the power. So there was a lot of work happened over there over the April break, and thanks to Natasha and her staff for allowing us to get a little bit of ahead of schedule for the April break, and let us make a little bit of extra noise there.
We were happy to do it. Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks. And again, everything is trending on schedule there. The new addition, we have tile going in, ceilings are going in. They're wrapping up some odds and ends now that the curtain wall and glazing is completed. So we're tying in the drywall at the bump outs now, and with the little bit of demo that was left that I got done in the GLC, we're going to be finishing up the entrance to that GLC now. There's some soffit framing to be done, and the entrance door to that GLC to still be framed, and that's going to be happening the rest of this week. So things are moving along really well at both Royal and Homes, and seeing Matt's on, I'll have him run through the work that happened over at Henley.
Sure. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Same as Scott mentioned, we did the power transfer at Henley, so the new transformer is energized, the old one is de-energized. All of that work in the bus loop was finished before the end of April break, so there was no issues with school operations there. Eversource was doing some pre-work before April break, but I don't think there were any impacts on bus pickup or drop off or any of the traffic there.
When you say you de-energize a transformer, what do you do with the old transformer? Does it get removed, have to be removed and disposed of?
Correct. So that's all under Eversource's jurisdiction. That has nothing to do with
Oh,
our
okay.
scope of work.
That's not done by our electrician, that's done by Eversource?
Correct. It's
Okay.
their transformer.
Okay.
As far as the new addition, the mason finished up all of the exterior brick, and they washed it. The storefront and curtain wall contractor finished all of their storefront framing. All of the glazing is in as well, except for the fritted glass, which I explained last time, is the glass with the dots to provide some extra shade along the courtyard. So you guys will see all of that when you walk through tomorrow. The drywall and taping was all completed for the walls and all of the hard ceilings. In most of the areas, there's some minor ones that are still open, just pending inspection and some minor changes that were made. And then tiling and painting is underway in the hallways and the bathrooms and the classrooms. So you'll see some accent paints, and you'll see all of the different tile patterns that are going up in the bathrooms and in the corridors.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of fun stuff to look at tomorrow for this walkthrough. You can see some of the finishes going in, and thanks to Eric and the design team, they've picked out some fun patterns and colors for the schools.
Nice. I see Paul Harding has joined. Hey, Paul, Scott was going to talk about phasing if you wanted to, or we can defer that and talk about it at OAC on Friday. What works for you?
I think it might be beneficial for the rest of the committee if they just get an overview of what's happening over the summer now that we're through the April break. But
Sure.
Again, I was just looking for a general 50,000. I know, like at Holmes, we're not going to do the library until next summer. Like just kind of a general what's going to happen at each school over the summer. So the brunt of the work, because the summers are obviously when we have the most volume that we can do, other than this in the schools, when we're not building new buildings outside of them. So
I think that would
we've
be.
also
I think
got
that would
some.
be. Go ahead.
Right, we've also got some new, semi-new, not newish board members who may have not been through the phasing drawings that we had gone through at the start of this, which is now 3 years ago, Chris. 2.5.
3.
So okay. So I thought it might be beneficial.
I think that's a great idea, Scott. If you
Yeah,
have time to do that, that would be great.
absolutely have the time. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Sharing is not turned on. Someone has to allow me to share.
Sarah can do that.
I am now the host.
All right.
Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
No.
There
How
we
about
go.
now? So this
There
is
we go.
Henley, and this is our phasing plan. So as you see, we're currently in phase 1B, which is the addition and this portion of the existing school. As we move through into the summer, we're going to be starting phases 2A and 2B on both the first and second floors, as you can see. So 2A will be completed at the end of this summer, so they'll be moving back into 2A. So you'll get all of the new addition, this phase 1B, and any 2A areas back for this summer, and then we stay in area 2B until December. And then at December is when we switch from phase 2B to phase 3. And then phase 4 will happen at the end of, that'll all happen at the end of the spring of, it'll start in the spring of 26 and run to the end of December of 26. And that's, when the whole building will be completed. So that's kind of a rough, quick overview of what that is.
And then down the low at the lower, what is the part that's kind of cut off on this? There you go. And that's still phase 1B.
Yeah.
So what phase is the removal of the library and the reconfiguration of the entrance?
So that is that's going to happen in the spring of 26.
Okay.
We
So with
grabbed that in April vacation, and that's when we demo that library, redo the bus loop, and refurbish that original front entrance on the school.
Okay. So with the exception of that, though, it looks like most of the work starting this summer is going to be moving inside. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a logistics plan here. You can see this is the library Chris was referring to. We're going to try to capture some of the work that's in the front of this building this summer. Because we have so much work to do here in the last from April to summer. So we're gonna try to capture some of this work to get this area here completed this summer. And then that'll just keep us from here over to here for the last summer, along with that demo. Right now, Chris and committee, the plan is while the demo crew starts the demolition of this library is when we're gonna finally be able to capture this area on the side to get that retention, water retention system underground. Because it's gonna cut off essentially all our access to what we have
Right.
to do if we do it any sooner.
Got it.
So we're gonna, while they're putting this in, the library will be demoed. Once that library is demoed, they'll be done with their galley system and they're gonna move in here and start to do the work to set up this extended new bus loop and do whatever the repair work that they have to do in this area. One thing on this logistics plan, it's changing a little bit. Is originally, as you see on these plans, eventually we're going to give you guys back a portion of this backyard, but we're going to end up keeping this area at least through the fall. We have to stockpile topsoil there. That's going to be used to finish the rest of the project, and we have nowhere else to keep it. So we're going to have to keep a little more area here in the back.
How high is that pile going to be, Scott?
Well, when I'm barbecuing with Lillian over here, we could talk
Right.
about that pile of topsoil.
Perfect.
She texts me on a regular basis if she has any problems, and we generally take care of it quickly.
Okay.
This is the homeschool. Similarly to the phasing at Henley, we're in the 1B phase, which is the classroom edition here, the music wing edition in the front corridor. Again, when this is completed, we jump into the phase 2A and 2B. They both start come soon as the kids move out. 2A again will be returned to them for the beginning of the school year in September, along with the new additions. And the 2B we keep until December. Once that's completed in December, we take over the phase 3 area. We've talked about these moves. These are going to be very intricate moves to navigate when the time comes. We'll have time. Like I said, we've already discussed them, but we'll have time to discuss them in a little more detail on how we're actually going to navigate that, because we do have to build temporary walls in these corridors in order to block off our work area and keep the student flow happening. So that's the trickiest portion of the job. And then the phase 4 areas again will be coming up in April of 26 and run through the summer. And this is actually part of that. At home's part of that work is this small addition on the back of the GLC. Again, we have a lot of work to do in this area for the amount of time that we have to do it in. So this will be a crunch time for us to get this work done, because we still also have, work in these 4 B areas. We're jumping a little bit ahead this summer. Fortunately, we've worked it out with Paula and her team that we are going to build the mezzanine here this summer, which requires a lot of work, requires pouring footings and steel and building the whole concrete deck here and this whole mezzanine to house electrical panels that actually run the new addition. So a lot of work is going to be happening in there as well this summer, but we're getting ahead in that 4A area, which is going to help us at the end of this project in that April of 26. And then logistically, this access road in this area will come back. We are keeping some of this area. I know we've already gotten the galley system installed ahead of schedule here in this yard. Evan's working with Kevin Minrett right now. We're working on some ideas on possibly giving them this backyard area back for September. Logistically, we had planned on keeping that for the whole project for storing stuff, but the way we're looking now, we're thinking we might be able to give them some of that area or most of that area back now. And then at Royal, again, we're in the phase 1B. We're working on this classroom edition and the GLC. Come summertime, we take over the 2B areas, which in this case at Royal is going to be demolition of the existing classroom wing to build this new classroom wing. As well as taking over the 2A areas, which they get back at the end of the summer. The 2C areas we're going to be keeping. And that's going to be where we're switching from 2C to 3 in December. And then again, the 4B areas are going to be the final April summertime shift. We also have some work down here in the cafeteria level as well as a phase 2A. We've already gotten a jump on some of the ductwork that comes through this crawl space to feed these areas. And we'll have new ceilings and lights going into that cafeteria. And then logistically, this is kind of where we're at now. And this is what we're going to look like. This is over the summer of 25. And then when we're going to be giving them back this whole area of the field and the new courtyard with the new classroom wing. And then we're going to be in this area here working on the back addition. Because that, even though this is a phase 2B, this addition will run through to the summer of 2026 as well. So that's kind of a quick overview on the logistics and the phasing.
Any questions from folks? Thank you for that. That was really helpful. That was very enlightening.
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks, Scott. That was very good. Thanks.
Yeah, listen, you guys ever have any questions? I mean, you could always give me a call.
Thanks, Scott. I guess the one question, where are we with the retention stuff at homes with the runoff? Is that one, in your mind, 100%
Yes.
sorted and done?
Yep.
Okay. No residual effects, nothing from storms, nothing from, because early on, it was the whole thing. We're going to have this, that with the neighbors and the concerns. But since we put everything together there, it's been fine.
Yep. I don't know that we've had, I don't know that we actually had any issues over there since we've been there, Paul, at Homes.
No, I don't think so either. It was more the concern up front when we started talking about getting into those areas.
Well, there was a neighbor that was very, very, very interested in that,
Yes.
that whole drainage system, and he was on top of us while we were building it.
Yeah.
Haven't heard from him since, assuming it was built to his satisfaction. And I don't know that we've had any issues with
we don't have anything left to do though. That's where I just wanted to make sure that we're buttoned up over there.
Yeah, there was some drainage across the back of that lot.
Right.
That they did take care of.
Okay. Thanks. I just was curious because I know when we were looking at the overviews, the whole thing came back to my memory.
Yeah, that's why like I said, we've gotten that work done ahead of schedule, and we're going to be able to possibly give them that yard back this summer. I don't want to make any promises I can't keep at this point, but we're working with Kevin Minrett on that now.
Okay. Thanks a ton, Scott.
While we're on this call, did you want to run through any of the ball and court PCO stuff, Chris?
Sure. Well, I might as well, since we have the relevant people here. I haven't seen an updated change log since the last OAC, but why don't we go through it if you've got it?
Can you guys still see my screen?
No, hang on one second. Okay, you'll just need to reshare now. I had to reclaim it. We had some people in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. So this is the Royal ball and court log for changes. There's one in KGD's court. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are in the building committee court.
I don't see those. Like I just checked before this meeting and there was maybe one. Everything else was pay apps. I don't see all those.
Okay, well, I just did this this afternoon. I could look into that, but this is what came up as open changes.
I
Yeah,
think
no.
a bunch of these, Jameson, some of these came in late. Some of these, just looking at the captions, like temp protection, escalation, bid allowance, electric for pump station, change ceilings. Those look like they came in this afternoon.
Yeah,
I
checked it.
reviewed some stuff this afternoon. There was only one school that had anything on it. I think it was Royal, and it was one was a very small change for changing the ceiling. One was the pump, the electric for the pump, and the other was a credit. So there was nothing, I didn't think there was 6, something to say that.
I just approved the voltage pathways was showing on mine. I approved that just before the meeting. So maybe between you and I, Paul, we did them and it just hasn't been updated since then.
Yeah, there were a bunch of A-Connects notices that I hadn't had a chance to open them other than that one Jameson that we emailed about, but a bunch came in that kind of 5:45 to 6 o'clock time frame today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I just checked now while we're on the meeting. I don't see any.
Yeah. I did these at 3 o'clock when I'm in anticipation of this meeting to make sure I was up to date.
Okay.
So I can I'll have these revised for the OAC meeting. I'll go back in and check. I know Matt just updated Henley, so I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So here's Henley's. These all just went in today.
Okay.
Except for this one was in there already. So these are all brand new. So these are all in Travis's court, which I need to talk to Eric about because Travis is away until May 1st, I believe.
Okay.
And then this is Holmes. There was only one in here, and this was the that vehicle gate.
Yeah, and there was some offline email exchange on that. I think Jameson wanted to see some of just the backup on that, some of the design backup, and then he could approve that.
Yeah, no, so the clarification was just that on the actual change order, it just says added gate. It doesn't state like who had requested it. And so I rejected it just to have some sort of paper trail on that says was requested by school board or school staff or whoever, and then I'll approve it. So if you make that change, send it back, I'll approve it as soon as I see it.
Okay.
Please, and thank you.
This is the Holmes change event log. It's probably really large for everybody. Again, so this shows you potentials that are in here. There's going to be there's a metal gate that was added to the stair that goes down to the basement. I'm still waiting on this change to come in on the revised number for this hazardous material.
Yep.
The project manager for the site contractor has been away. He's back now just yesterday. So I should start to get that, hopefully get that in.
Okay.
And then there's the VC. This was the one that we were looking into adding the VCT to the cafeteria. It's about $20,000. for that change. I haven't made this a change. This was kind of one that we were putting as on a wish list. This
Right.
includes, so that change would be removing the existing vinyl tile flooring, patching the floor, and then reinstalling new VCT. Again, if you guys are interested in this, I think Travis and the design team need to put together what they feel that this design would look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a handful of those that were going to be scoped and priced for us to
Yep.
consider. And
Yep.
that I think the idea was prioritizing the ones that needed to be done first from a phasing standpoint, segueing from the phasing discussion we just had, prioritizing those for us to consider, and then, highlighting what we thought were a little further down the road. And we'll talk about kind of where we stand financially in a minute when you're done with this part of your discussion. But I think it's going to, we're going to need to see sort of scope and timing and pricing on those.
So in my mind, this scope of this floor could happen at any point.
Okay.
We would just need, we would need a week to take over that area of the school, move out the tables and chairs and do what we had to do for that. So
Right.
this is something happening. I think right now the only thing I'm working on, I still don't have the pricing for yet for my site contractor at Royal, is for the sod in that courtyard. That would be the only thing that would need to go in
This summer.
Spring,
Summer. Yeah. Okay.
So moving through the active ones on this list, this is all the stuff that is a PCO and is in some form of not it's in its approval stage, right? It could either be in the design team's court, in your court, or in my court as revise and resubmit. So that's what active means. When they show up as active, it just has it. The next step from here would be approved.
Right.
How it shows up in this log. So that's what active are. These are all in as a PCO. Potentials are just still in my queue, waiting for either more backup, or the actual getting a change from the subcontractor.
Is there ever an option from a logistics standpoint, technologically, to have like a SharePoint or something for us to see this live, or is that too much extra work for you?
I don't. Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not what? Probably not extra work, or probably not possible to do.
It's always extra work, Chris, and probably not have access to it.
Okay.
Myself right now, Matt, and John are the only ones who have access to the cost module on AConnex. It's not generally shared.
Okay. I'll ask for an update as needed if we're getting beyond this. Okay, thanks.
I mean, anytime that you, like I said, anytime you guys feel like you want an update on this, I mean, I'm trying to do it. I mean, we're only meeting bi-weekly. I could make it a point to send this out once a week if you'd like.
That would be, if you remember to do it and you have the availability, I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, to generate this report is not, any type of heavy lift for me to do that and send out an email. So I could share with this with you guys weekly as opposed to just bi-weekly with the OAC meeting.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay.
And then it just runs through, allowances.
Okay, well, why don't we move on then? This is great. Thank you for that. And I think, thank you for Jameson for that suggestion. I think that's a good idea. That way we can keep more real-time track on these as they're working their way through the system.
Yep. So you can see this is Royals. There's a deleted roof training that was per R54 I'm still waiting for. And then this is a small one, which I think is just going to end up being some type of a TNM. And I might end up just dropping this one to an allowance. And then these are the ones that again are active. And then similarly here for Henley, these three we're still waiting for some more information from subcontractors, and then these are all the ones that are active. Again, some of these were just put in today.
Right.
And some of them could be back in our core as a revise and resubmit as well. So that kind of runs through those. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, or we can, like I said, I'll send these out. They'll be attached to the minutes. And I'll give an update too to see if you guys had what you ever returned, and then that could remove some of these as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Great.
Which is a good segue to one of our discussion and approval items, which is our change order, the change order number 2 for each of the schools. And just as a reminder, while the dollar amounts aren't such that that they require full committee approvals, I'm taking the approach that because these are technically amendments to the guaranteed max contract, they should be approved by the committee. So the first one is I'd like to get a motion to approve change order number 2 for Henley Elementary School in the amount of $52,758. And that one is change order number 2 for Henley. Could I get a motion to approve that? Moved, seconded, approved. Could I get a motion to approve change order number 2 for the Royal Elementary School in the amount of $75,300? Moved, seconded, approved. Thank you. And could I get a motion to approve change order number 2 for the Holmes Elementary School in the amount of $21,388? Moved, seconded, approved. Great. The next thing I wanted to discuss, I think it's a good news story, which is the financial reporting that I think we're now, we've been working with Josh. Thank you to Rob Cardone and Tom Harris for their input and for the help from ONG in coordinating with Josh and showing him where he could pull information from the ONG reports. But we circulated around the April 21st summary that that Josh had produced. The idea being that there's now kind of a one-page snapshot that shows where we are on a school-by-school basis on both hard costs and soft costs against our current budget, and then how we're doing on a school-by-school basis in terms of use of both the owner's contingency and the construction manager's contingency, taking into account approved change orders and also taking into account potential change orders, which is the sheet that Scott just went through with us. So we have a sense of kind of how we're doing, how we're tracking against all of those cost items. I think it's a good news story because I think if you look at the progress against budget, a hard cost and soft cost on an aggregate basis, we have spent about 40% of our budgeted hard and soft costs. $101 million aggregate total budget, of which we spent roughly 39.6 million, leaving us with about 62 million still available. So that has us at about 40%. Contingency wise, if you look at it, the good news there is on the owner's contingency, we've only used about 13% of it. And like I said, that takes into account potential change orders in the pipeline that haven't yet been approved. And we've used virtually none of the construction manager's contingency. I think 1% at Holmes, 2% at Henley, and none at Royal. So Jill, you look concerned. Either I'm saying something that's inaccurate, or Jill doesn't like what I'm saying.
Just reading as you're talking. No worries.
Okay.
All good.
So I think that's good news. And I think that that ties into the point that Scott was making, which there are some discretionary items for us to start taking into account. Trying to be very, very, very careful not to spend money, not for us, the committee, to spend money irresponsibly, because we don't want to have to go back and ask for any more. But I believe from a progress standpoint, we're doing pretty well. We do have a fair amount remaining in our contingencies. So we can start thinking about things like, the lawn inside the Royal Courtyard, right? The vinyl floor tile in the Holmes cafeteria, possibly the new ceiling tiles in the halls, repointing some bricks, things like that. Once we get pricing on that from Scott, I think we're in a good place. I don't mean to put you on the spot. When I say we spent about 40% of our budget, leaving the money aside, where would you think we are in terms of construction progress? Does that sort of track with, like, you think we're about 40% of the way there on the project, or more or less?
No, it's right in the ballpark. I could pull something up quick. Actually, it's over here.
I think this is going to be the format that Josh is going to now produce on a monthly basis. So we'll get this snapshot, so we can see. It's one of these things where, like, it felt anecdotally like we were doing pretty well, and it's nice to see now that we're getting the numbers that's being borne out.
So I'm showing these projects around the 43%.
Okay. All right, so that's good. So that's about tracking with our spend.
Yep.
Any thoughts, questions, reactions from committee members, Dr. Adley, on that?
I was just going to say, go ahead, Al.
Go ahead, James. James, go ahead.
I was just going to say to what you said, Chris, is that's a good point. Is like that. I think our due diligence as a team of making sure that PCO, the change orders are looked over and reviewed carefully, that we'll have the option to have some money to spend on visually appealing and important things for the schools and the kids and everything. So I'm glad we're in a position, and that's everybody's working together to get that done. So thanks.
I would just concur with Jameson just said. At the point when we're at the point of, like, actually making some decisions about some of these other things, I think that there's, I'll say, relatively small investments that can be big payoffs in terms of how the thing looks across the schools. We're spending a lot of money, clearly, right? But there may be other things that if we're in a position to do them, I think it would be wise to do them, because it's going to set the place, each three schools, it'll set it off better as they move from one phase of the school location to another, and so on. So when you're ready to have that discussion, continue that discussion, I'm happy to be at the table for that.
Yeah, and I think we're just going to need to, look, some of it's going to be an educated guess, and some of it's going to be, taking in a considered risk. Like, gee, if we spend, pick a number, $20,000 on flooring for the cafeteria. I think was the number I saw, Scott, on the flooring for the cafeteria at Homes. You know, I don't expect that that's going to break the camel's back, but you know, we're gonna have to make some of those decisions, you know, on a more front-ended basis. But you know, knowing that we've still got, you know, 85 to 87% of our owner's contingency left, you know, gives me a degree of comfort.
So, you know, and going through just Homes, you know, because we talked about the cafeteria floor, any big items I think that could possibly come up, you know, like that hazardous material, right? I think we're going to dodge that bullet of a $98,000 change order and get it down to about a $38,000 change order.
Right.
You know, other than, and we're done with the work outside, right? That there's no more, you know, hidden, you know, disasters that we're going to be digging up out there. We're done digging up out there, right? So, inside the school building with the amount, what we're doing for renovations in there, I mean, anything could happen, but I don't really see anything. It would have to be something like some type of structural catastrophe that we uncovered that would cost a lot of money, and I still don't see it, you know.
And just from a accounting standpoint, if we, let's just hypothetically, if we are getting down the road, like way down the road, I think it's way too early to even think about this, but if there is money remaining as we get to the end of the project in the CM contingency, we could amend the budget and reallocate that to owner's contingency.
Correct.
So
yep,
we should be considering that. I mean, that's our money. That's essentially our money. So
yep,
ours meaning the town's money.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be tracking that as well. And we're really not touching that so far, at least haven't been touching that contingency, which I think is partly a testament to the design and bidding work that ONG and KG&D did, that there's not a lot of stuff coming up that's hitting that contingency. So
yeah, I think all the projects have been running really well so far.
Scott.
I'll echo this. Sorry, Jill. You know, having been through this, you know, for 30 some odd years and knowing what can happen at schools, you know, we're in good shape. You know, like Scott said, we've gone through the exterior, the excavation stuff. Yeah, if a structural thing comes up, yeah, it could cost us something. But I think what I'm trying to say is we need to start thinking about what we want to do for the aesthetics, because our constituents are going to come in and want to see those upgrades, because we just built a new school at Ox Ridge. And so I am now putting that stuff more in the front burner, you know, whereas I wanted to get through this kind of first phase, this break, and now this summer where I think it's all kind of in front of us. It's now blocking and tackling. So I welcome, you know, things like pulling up a floor and putting a new floor in are going to go a long way. New ceilings, you know, getting rid of old ceiling tiles and putting new ceilings in. You know, Scott and me would call it what we used to call eye wash, you know, paint the walls, put up new fixtures, and everybody goes, wow, look how great it looks. But that's kind of what it is, because you know, the finishes pop and people feel like they've gotten a new school or bang for their buck. So,
well, yeah, at $101 million, that's the kind of thing where people are going to be like, oh, okay.
Right. You're making my point, Chris. At $101 million, they're going to want to say, what do we pay for? So anything that can really, from a usage standpoint, like, you know, the new bus loop or things like that, or the post road entrance, or any kind of aesthetic that's going to make the project just that much, you know, bring KG&D's design and out to a better view of from the public and our people using these places is I'm all for now, because I'm always the one on the other side. I'm very conservative. I never want to touch the money in the pot. I don't ever want until it's necessary, because you never know if something's going to come up. But I would say we are 80% through any of the, you know, Scott can tell you, and I can tell you, you spend about half your life in risk assessment meetings on these jobs. And I think I would say, Scott, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, we're probably through 65 to 70% of our risk.
I could agree with that, Paul. I think, like I said, from where we are, we've gotten through the tough part.
Right. So, you know, I'm happy to start entertaining this stuff and like, you know, if there's anything that has to be brought up now for phasing, let's talk it through and start moving the stuff to the forefront, because we should, you know, I know 26 summer sounds far away, but it'll be here before you know it.
Where's that current list exist, Paul or Scott or Chris?
A list of items that we are gonna look into.
The wish list?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it's I don't think it's written down. It's been items that have been sort of discussed.
I think Eric and team have it.
Yeah, he may.
Have the principals weighed in from each school with a wish list of maybe some common areas?
Well, I know Kevin Monret has already brought up, we were talking about doing some type of acoustical, you know, baffles inside that cafeteria as well to try to help with the acoustics in there. You know, we had a rough order of magnitude cost for that. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but, you know, we kind of volleyed that into the design team's court because that's something that's aesthetic as well. You know, I'm sure they're going to want to do some type of colors. I don't know if we want to do some type of fun shapes on the walls.
Well, maybe the time is to recognizing that it needs to be priced, and we're not going to make any decisions on any of this until we know A, how much it's going to cost, and B, when in the timeline it's going to be done. Maybe the time is right to start putting that list together, recognizing that list could expand, it could shrink, but it probably makes sense to start putting that list together.
And it needs to be,
I'm sorry, Jill, go ahead.
It needs to be prioritized. So, you know, there's not just an open pot of money that we're just going to spend. I think it's really important that we say there may be some leftover contingency. There are items that we feel like would add significant value to the project, and we feel like these are wise, and the way that they're defensible. There are plenty of future capital projects, including the middle school, coming down the pike. You know, so I think we want to optimize the user experience, optimize what we do in the building, but optimize the use of every dollar. So I think it's pretty critical that we're organized, that there's a timeline, and that we think carefully about the priorities and the need for each one. So would value that from you and Scott, Eric, and Eric, looks like you just raised your hand.
I agree 100%. There's to start right now to create that priority list, because there's some priorities that are that are done this summer. And so it might be to do it later on would be out of sequence. So if we have some availability of funding for this summer, like the turf and some of the masonry repair, et cetera, that has been discussed, if that's something that's planned to be done this summer, would be the time to do it as opposed to at a later date, because we would be affecting work that has already been completed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Correct.
Great. Perfect.
So can you guys suggest a proposed timeline for us? Not right now, but can you organize it?
Itemize it by the proposed addition plus the proposed, you know, where in the phasing timeline it would go in.
Yeah,
and then obviously the blank column that needs to be filled in is the how much column.
I think you guys, like I said, we've talked about the finances quite a bit. I think you guys are in a good position. I think we could do quite a bit of aesthetic work here, and you still have some money at the end of this project that you'll have left over without, you know, we're not going to spend every dime that you have. And I think we could still add some. I don't think the schools are in horrible shape, right? But I just think we cut back, you know, on the original funding, like I said, on some ceiling work, maybe on some painting, some floor repair. We don't even have to do all new floors, but maybe some areas where we do put new floors.
Right.
You know, something I noticed, and I haven't run it by anybody yet, but I noticed like the two back stairwells over at Homes are just concrete and paint. Maybe we want to add flooring there to do the rubber stair treads and risers and landings there.
Well, I think so that we just keep moving, why don't we leave it to you and Eric to put the wish list together? And I guess I would probably, you know, make it more inclusive rather than less inclusive, so we can see kind of what the wider scope is. If we need to bring it in, we'll bring it in, right? And I think tomorrow, those of us who will be on the tour may also have some, people may have some input following that. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the other things I was talking with the Masons about is right now we are going to be washing the copings, which are the top stones around the building, the existing building, which are going to come very clean. We've already done part of it. They look great. But I'm thinking that we don't own washing the actual existing buildings, the brick. And that might be something else that I think will add a lot of value as far as when you drive up. I think it will look, you'll notice it's a noticeable difference when you clean the brick.
We look forward to hearing more.
So we're already running a little bit over, so why don't we just keep rolling here? The last action item here is to discuss if people have any questions, but to take action on the March pay applications. So the first one is if I can get a motion to approve pay application number 11 dated March 31st, 2025 for the Henley Elementary School in the amount of $1,357,811.33. Moved, seconded, approved. Great. If I could get a motion to approve pay application number 11 for the Royal Elementary School dated March 31st, 2025 in the amount of $874,964.49. Moved, seconded, approved. Great. Lastly, if I could get a motion to approve pay application number 11 for the Holmes Elementary School dated March 31st, 2025 in the amount of $735,864.11. Moved, seconded, approved. Great. So just for housekeeping purposes, Linda O'Leary has these printed out. So some combination of Chris, Rob, Sarah, and Jill just need to go by town hall before next Wednesday and sign those so that they can be put in the queue to pay O&G. That would be great. Anything else that the group wishes to discuss? Questions, input, observations?
Hey, Chris, this is Kevin. I actually have an update from the beginning of the meeting, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
We submitted the state reimbursements in January, and to date, we've received Royal only. We anticipate Henley in May, and for some reason, Holmes is still in limbo with the state, but we'll follow up with them. But
so those are the general reimbursements for hard cost construction costs, right? That's as distinct from the change order submissions.
Correct, and they'll be submitted quarterly hereafter. To Dave's point earlier, they don't allow you to submit but every 2 months, but we do it quarterly.
Okay, great. No, that's great. Thank you for that. That was that clarified where we started the meeting on. So appreciate that.
You're welcome.
With that, unless people have anything else they wish to discuss, apologies for running a little over, but I think we covered a lot of ground today. I think it was really, really helpful meeting Scott in particular. Thank you for a lot of really good input.
You're welcome.
So if I could get a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, approved. Thank you, everybody. And I know I'm belated, but I hope everybody had a nice holiday week and Easter and Passover for those who observe. So I didn't get to wish everybody that at the last meeting. So I hope folks had a nice holiday. And we will see whoever wants to show up tomorrow for the tour at 9 at Henley, and then OAC on Friday in the, I don't know which trailer we're in yet. I haven't seen
we're
John's.
think we're
Or
at Homes this week.
Okay. All right. Are those good donuts or not? Are those?
I think you're looking at Duncan this week.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's okay. It's better than nothing. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Everybody have a good evening, and really appreciate you all taking the time and being so engaged.
Have a
Thanks.
good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See you tomorrow.
you. Bye.
Bye.